Caitlin Clark purposefully slid into the lane, looking for a gap in the floor. She leaped forward to release the ball as she composed herself to make a pass, but her momentum led her directly into a larger defender who was standing close to the paint. Although it wasn't intentional, the collision was strong enough to propel Clark backward and land him hard on the hardwood floor. The audience froze for a moment. Although it wasn't a very noteworthy play, it was enough to raise questions about whether she would return to the same level of success. She wasn't up for long. That being said, she did not dominate the entire evening. Her rhythm came in quick bursts, and her shots didn't fall as they usually do. The events that followed that fall, however, had nothing to do with her attempting to dominate the game. It was about how Indiana stepped up when things seemed uncertain, how her teammates supported her, and how the team came to be defined by others. Clark wasn't defined by the moment, but the Fever might have been defined by what followed. Indiana relied on its most dependable pair as the contest got underway. Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark executed a flawless pick-and-roll a little more than a minute in. Boston saw the mismatch as soon as the defense changed, closed up the smaller defender on the block, and Clark made a precise pass that put her in position for an easy basket. Seattle responded right away. Nneka Alamaki made the layup in stride after Skylar Diggins displayed her playmaking ability with a well-timed backdoor bounce pass, but Clark didn't wait to make her presence known once more. She pulled the ball away from Seattle's huge a few seconds later. She then shoved the loose ball to Clark, who went down the floor and completed the transition layup as Boston picked it up. Diggins immediately retaliated with a powerful offensive sequence. She drove into the paint, causing the defense to crumble and kick it back out to Amiki, who buried the triple after stepping into a clear view from outside the arc. Indiana was also getting into a rhythm early, but so were the two veterans. Clark saw Boston sprinting hard in transition on the following possession. Boston rallied, swerved around her opponent, and smashed the ball into the rim. The Fever had been working all season to develop this type of internal chemistry, and it was beginning to pay off. Diggins kept upping the ante for Seattle, cutting through the defense during a transition and allowing Euro to into the lane for her game-first points. In the half court, Indiana continued to feed Boston. With a smooth bounce pass through traffic, Clark found her again as the Fever ran her through a double staggered screen this time. Boston wasted no time in turning the chance into another goal. But Seattle answered with a Spain pick and roll that was flawless. Diggins scored the layup after driving into the defense after the ball screen released him. Kelsey Mitchell saw a transitional gap with less than a minute remaining. She pulled up near the three-point line and blasted it after the defender backed off, giving the Fever a small advantage. And shortly before the quarter was out, Clark patiently worked his way back into the defense. Dantas collected the pass in the corner and made a clean three-pointer after she drew assistance inside. Clark had already contributed 4 assists before the end of the first quarter, and Indiana had a 27-24 lead. Seattle continued to be aggressive on the offensive glass as the second quarter got underway. Amiki's teammates swiftly located her just inside the arc after snagging the rebound from a missed shot. Amiki continued her effective start by getting up and taking down the mid-range jumper without hesitation. Kelsey Mitchell, who had already established her rhythm, was Indiana's response. Blowing past her opponent and completing the layup in traffic, she confidently attacked the lane. Mitchell continued to attack, and shortly after, she attracted the defense before making a beautiful pass to Boston while she was rolling. Boston laid it in after taking it in stride. Another illustration of Indiana's enhanced two-player action performance, but Seattle was not going away. When Ezi Magbagor collected the ball going into the lane, she displayed remarkable elegance and court vision. Instead, she kept her head up and saw Wamiki cutting into the dunker position across from her. Amiki completed the dump-off pass for 2 more after Magbagor made it appear simple. The Fever defense was still under siege from Skylar Diggins. She banked in a challenging finish after weaving her way into the paint with a tight crossover. She found Gabby Williams with a timely feed a few possessions later, and Williams blasted towards the rim for a powerful, fast layup. Indiana quickly lost that momentum. Sophie Cunningham started a fast transition play and passed the ball to Mitchell, who calmly walked into a three-point shot and made it. Boston maintained that pressure with her presence inside as the Fever's perimeter shooting began to put pressure on Seattle's defense. She scored at the rim after powering through contact on an offensive rebound. Indiana's efforts on the boards were having an impact. After a teammate missed, Dantas snatched up another offensive rebound and promptly turned it into points. The Seattle defense was beginning to falter from the second chance possibilities. Mitchell added another dagger to it. The ball bounced directly back to her on the boundary after a miss. She took a stance and made her third three-pointer of the evening. She had already scored 15 points from that shot, and the Fever were largely controlled by her shooting. Indiana entered the locker room leading 45-39 as the halftime buzzer sounded. After 2 tense quarters, they were in control because to their harmony between outside scoring and interior presence. Caitlin Clark's highlight of the third quarter came when she faced Erica Wheeler alone. She drove right to the rim for a clean finish after dribbling abruptly behind the back, leaving the season guard behind. It was the type of quick, instinctual play that gave Indiana the lead early in the second half. Skylar Diggins, Seattle's most reliable player of the evening, responded. She attacked downhill after a handoff and finished an off-balance layup in traffic with her left hand. She picked up the pace once more after a few possessions. She split the defense and finished over Clark for another difficult basket in transition, despite having 2 defenders in front of her, but Kelsey Mitchell was not allowing Seattle to gain the upper hand. She managed to get a switch onto a larger defender and then pulled up for a mid-range jumper with just enough separation. The shot was pure and maintained her scoring clinic even though her feet were in danger. When Wheeler retrieved an offensive rebound and found Diggins standing unopposed behind the arc, Seattle quickly rallied. She sunk the three-pointer after rhythmically catching the pass. Indiana remained sharp in spite of that shot. In response, Clark delivered one of her trademark full-court reads. When she saw Boston slipping out in transition after catching the outlet pass, she sent a flawless hit-ahead throw. Boston capitalized on the early attack, gathered, and finished neatly. Diggins again rejected the screen on the subsequent trip down and went to the hoop, making a smooth scoop layup to keep Seattle alive, but Indiana's shooters remained locked in. Mitchell kicked the ball to Lexi Hull in the corner after driving into the lane and bringing down the defense. The Fever's lead returned to double digits after Hull stood up and made a confident three. Indiana's performance, out of the pick and roll, kept getting better. Mitchell put Boston on the roll once more with less than 3 minutes remaining, and the All-Star huge shot past the defense to score her 20th point of the game. Mitchell had not finished. She pulled up and made another three-pointer because no one was stepping up in transition, giving her 23 points for the evening and total control over the game's pace. Boston maintained their dominance inside as the quarter came to an end. She struggled for position, dropped a light hook shot, and twirled over her opponent. Indiana had increased their lead to 75-58 by the end of the third. Caitlin Clark took no time in establishing the tone for the last quarter with to their unrelenting speed, quick decisions, and the formidable two-headed attack of Boston and Mitchell. She confidently knocked down the mid-range jumper after coming off a screen and taking a few control dribbles before pulling up just inside the arc. It was a calm, effective start that increased Indiana's lead. Seattle's Gabby Williams answered the phone. She turned her back to the hoop, spun into a turnaround jumper, and hit a challenging shot in spite of close coverage while isolated against Sophie Cunningham. Shortly after, Clark displayed her distinctive transitional vision once more. She quickly grabbed a rebound and hit Lexi Hull with a precise outlet pass up the sideline. Hull calmly completed the layup at the rim after letting the opponent sail by with a straightforward shot fake. Throughout the entire game, Seattle had been punished by this type of full-court connection. However, the Storm was not passing in silence. Nneka Onyeike ran coast-to-coast for the fast break finish after reading a sloppy pass and easily picking it off. However, Skylar Diggins took it upon herself to attempt to keep her team in it, so the momentum change didn't last long. She hit a difficult jumper as the shot clock ran down after dancing into a one-on-one matchup with Mitchell and creating just enough space. Indiana reacted quickly and forcefully. After taking a step back and making a long three-pointer, Kelsey Mitchell, who had been deadly throughout the game, established separation. The crucial shot restored control of the pace and put an end to any hopes of a comeback. The shot clock was winding down again a few minutes later, but this time, Aaliyah Boston was on the outside. She finished well at the rim after attacking the closing defender without hesitation, even though she is not typically in that position. The Fever's ball movement was still excellent with just over a minute remaining. Seattle lost sight of Boston, the hottest player on the court, following a shrewd defensive rotation. As a nice bounce off the rim, Boston completed the short shot as Clark swiftly identified it and slipped the ball inside. That basket effectively ended the game and gave her 30 points for the evening. A few late touchdowns were added by Seattle. Wheeler hit a three-pointer in transition over Mitchell, and Diggins floated in a left-handed runner over Hull. However, the decision had already been made. Indiana completed a strong two-way performance with a resounding victory. Clark's valiant performance was not necessary for Indiana to convey their point. All they needed was for her to get up, maintain her composure, and have faith in the group that emerged.